ascending. All right, today, listeners, we're talking how we travel, specific tidbits on strike missions, and also some tips of the trade on tube riding on today's
Toob. Nice.
That was a good one.
Who do you think? Who do you think's the best barrel rider in this room?
Enthusiastic. I'd say Drew by a bit.
Drew?
By a decent bit. I mean, he's had so much time in perfect tubes.
Yeah.
I have had not nearly as much. I'm gonna put that out there with a big.
I'm not really that good at it though.
No, I mean, at the end of the day, there's some innate quality to it, like that you don't get no matter how much sick tubes. I mean, Shane Dorian on Joe Rogan. Did you hear this? He was just like, "There's, I don't know, call it 50%." Of people who surf their entire lives will just never get tubed.
Like, just never be
50?
tubed.
I would say it's more than that.
65, 70. I mean, Phil, you're in Bali with all these like fucking Swedish influencers who are like,
yeah, exactly.
I made tube today. It's like not even,
That's
they're terrible.
German
like,
Thai.
But, I mean, I think that honestly, and this is crazy too, like Drew's the best out of us, but you watch some other guys who are really good tube riders and they just seem to make thread everything. And
yeah.
I'm always, and like they're just always packing it, always coming out of little doggy doors, always like just being able to pump on your backhand. That kind of stuff blows my mind.
I think some tube riders, like Jake, for example, like he's a really good tube rider.
Yeah.
And they're like silky.
Yeah.
Like
it is.
I really think getting tubed has a lot to do with like slowing the wave down in your mind.
Yeah.
And that sounds like crazy and like, kind of like nutty. But like if you have the ability to like just like kind of like see the section before you take off, kind of like slow your speed down to match the wave speed or the pocket speed. Yeah, you got to read the wave. And then to like maybe just take a breath and just kind of like chill out. Like I watched Kissed by God the other day with my girlfriend or the other night. And I was like, look how calm he looks, Annie Irons in the tube.
You mean he wasn't just...
Yeah, he wasn't like freaking like wide mouth, like tube fit, like O face, like...
a lot of pros still do the O face.
He was so composed.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is not being afraid of the tube.
Sure.
Wanting to be.
When in reality, it could be the safest place.
Exactly.
Like a lot of times it's the safest place to be. You definitely don't want to be
that video Brett Barley made, the instructional on how to get tubed.
Yeah.
He was saying like, that's the safest place to be. You got to get in or else you're going to get crushed.
A lot of it's counterintuitive, I think. Like, for one, I mean, that Brett Barley tip, I think I talked about this before, but he encourages backdooring and being under the lip because he says if you're up near the top of the lip, there's more of a tendency to throw, like the wave's going to pitch as opposed to being, already under the lip. You're already halfway down the face when you get up as opposed to being up here and just getting chucked. Or for that matter, having like an elevator drop and losing all your speed based off of just flying out of the air. And I mean, that I think is counterintuitive. And then the other thing that I've found, my past couple of years, I've been trying to focus on it. For the first time, I'm like, let me just not just
freak out.
Like, chill out. One of the things I think is
just don't freak out, and it makes it a lot easier.
Like I saw and
it's excited.
Well, yeah, and another thing is footage of yourself helps a ton in surfing in general. But pictures that I had of me in Samoa versus me in Indo this past time I went, I realized what I had been trying to do. I started to do a little bit more, which is also counterintuitive. I try to stay on my back foot and engage my fins more on my backhand as opposed to leaning forward a lot. Like you think you should be leaning forward, but that sort of like disengages your rail or your fins and your rail a little bit as well. If you lean towards the toe, or not the toe, the tip of the board, like the nose, and you lose speed because you're not you're not leaning back into the wave, not like a stall, but just a subtle adjustment where your weight is more on your back foot. And I have a tendency to be a front foot of a surfer in general, but it seems like then you harness the energy of the wave as opposed to trying to outrun the wave in a way that's just gonna wipe speed off. I don't know if you know what I mean. Like if you lean, think about it. You're never like leaning too far forward like this, like because then I don't know. You're
like when your chest is against your forward knee.
Yeah,
that's
like you lose speed almost.
I don't know. I think the general rule of thumb is weight on your front foot. You're hitting the gas.
That's kind of how I was
surfing.
Naturally.
Yeah.
Go.
I don't know. There's got to be. There's something to keeping your fins engaged.
I think, Ty, it's just better. Like what you're saying is like if you kind of realistically, a lot of getting, and Phil, you kind of mentioned this with talking to AJW about like redesigning a board for you after you had been to Nias, right? You said you were way out ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, you just got to hit the brakes, and I think a lot of like novice, and like I consider myself like pretty intermediate, like, and it's only coming to me as I get older, and it's like I'm less overly excited to pull into this wave.
Calm down.
Yeah, like calm down, and maybe it's because I'm like a little more sluggish or something. But I think what's super important is to wipe speed. Yeah. Right. And to wipe speed without like really stomping on your back foot to hit the brakes, you kind of just like give it that little rock towards the tail to kind of like create some more friction. So I think, Tyler, what you're saying is like more like managing.
I was saying more if you find yourself
leaning,
not making tubes
because you're leaning forward,
you're in them,
but you're and because you're leaning too far forward on your front.
Generally,
specifically on your backhand.
Generally, you set your feet forward. You see really good tube riders; they're way forward on their board.
Yeah,
but what I'm saying is, I'm on my feet are in their normal position, but my body's leaning way forward. I think that's different than having your weight appropriately dispersed between your 2 feet, but then leaning your whole body forward. I think that's
yeah. I think I kind of got where you're getting out now, because I do find a lot of the tubes I don't make, I'm falling in front of my board because I'm leaning so hard, when it would be better maybe to position yourself
just a little more even weight.
Yeah, just to get the board
across your
under
2
your feet to give you more speed.
Maybe this is the tip for this. Try taking that weight off, like. Right, so you're basically what you're saying is that your chest is out over your front knee.
Yeah.
And your outside, or your back hand is on your outside rail, right? In your case, goofy footed, your left hand is on your rail. And your right chest is on your right knee, and you're kind of like squared up facing out the tube, right?
Yeah.
And that's a super common like drivey backside tube stance. Maybe, and I've actually found some success in this as of late, like maybe try putting a little bit more of your body weight into the face of the wave. Like using that lean, try and like push the side of your body into the face of the wave to kind of create that stall for you, but it also kind of helps you stay up. Like kind of keeps you on your feet a little bit more. Almost like a fourth point of contact, right? So what you're doing is creating 3 points of contact by putting your hand on the rail in addition to your 2 feet to get you low. And then what's like, it's just like when Craig Anderson started doing that backside two ride where he kind of like drop kneed and just like put his side super stylishly and like mellowly into the face of the wave and was just like,
but
just
that's
chilling, man.
That's
just try going straight up and down more.
Yeah, straight up and down more, but not putting. So I'm talking about like when I'm in it, but I don't make the end section. Like I don't make it out because I'm just. It's not a stall problem, and that's more on the backhand. The forehand's a different thing altogether, and I think the forehand I have a bit more figured out. And the biggest thing that I did was I don't know if I came back from a trip, but 2 summers ago when Long Island was literally like 6 foot for a whole month, which is unbelievable. I started to sort of figure this out because I was getting the opportunity in more good lefts. Like the burn heard around the world from episode 1 with Andy just falling out of the sky. That day I was getting tubed a lot, making like all of them. And the biggest, I made one change, and I was double hand dragging off the takeoff. And that was all the difference between being out ahead of it and actually wiping enough, just a bit of speed off.
So think about that, right? Your 2 hands on the face of the wave to wipe speed. It also gives you 4 points of contact.
Yeah.
Right?
2 feet.
So maybe
2
that
hands.
has something. Maybe that is something to be said. There's something to be said about that, like kind of like putting the side of your torso into the face of the wave on your backhand, and putting 2 hands on the face of the wave on your forehand.
Maybe what it would do, actually, now that I think about it, would be to keep you higher up on the face.
And that's probably a big part of it. Is that it engages
counterintuitive. Like
it engages you up the into the face of the wave.
I think I've gotten a little too comfortable with that. I started almost immediately doing double hand
Nothing's
drag.
worse than a tubeless stall.
Just to stay up high and prepare for the tube.
Yeah.
Just because that's like all I'm really trying to do.
So let's
surfing.
Let's isolate.
So it's
guys,
actually a bad habit
that
to
I
get
do that.
into it, because you start doing it on every single wave.
Right.
You're just like right away, you're getting ready to go. You're like, what am I doing?
Well, but that's
slowing me down for no reason.
That's also, it depends on what the waves are doing that day. Because you probably got into the habit, and then you go to a lot of waves that aren't that hollow, and then you like doing it like weird.
Tubeless stalls.
But
minus 3 points.
One more point on this topic of stalling and chilling in the tube versus trying to like go crazy. Growing up where we did like the longest waves, like 4 to 5 seconds, and so I've always had a propensity to just get up, start pumping, start racing down the line.
Entirely.
Yeah, and
it took years to shake.
The only thing that honestly, I
still do it.
I still do it, but when I go to a reef break, and this past trip to Indo was like a long playful left that didn't really tube, only like novelty tubes, and if you're way out the back, but generally it's just a wall. And I do this every time I go to a reef break. I race out ahead of it. I'm like, oh wait, the wave's like just over there. Like I need to fade. Like do a bit more, like wipe some speed off, and just sit in the pocket and don't pump. Like I'm just like, I'm not gonna pump once on this wave.
I want to do that so bad, like right now. I want to fade a drop in, and then just like slowly rise to the top of the face of a wave.
Yeah.
Just like bend my knees and just go back down.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything better than the little check turn.
Yeah, the check turn tube stall, or
straight down the face, little check into the tube.
Yeah.
And just set the perfect line.
I think that's a great way. I think that's a great way to improve your odds of pulling in. I think it's entirely underrated. Like you said, like the double hand drag, or like I said, like sinking your body into the face of the wave on your backhand. I think because you can do it on both your forehand and your backhand, the check turn, like the mid-face check turn to wipe speed, like it really improves your odds to getting the initial barrel. But then you've really got to be very good at managing your speed once you're actually in the tube,
right?
Because it's really easy to fall behind and get on the foam ball and just get do donuts.
Yeah. I only do it forehand. I don't think I've ever done a check back.
I find it pretty easy to do on your backhand.
It's like doing a snap almost in the middle of the wave.
It's a mid-face. Yeah. It's not quite a full snap, but it's almost like a mid-face snap on your backhand that because you're kind of like, you can see the transition of the wave. You can't really see what's going on with the lip over your shoulder, like almost behind you, but you kind of see what's going to curtain over you. You kind of you just get to that mid-face, maybe even a little lower than mid-face on your backhand, and you just kind of give it that check and a little tail stomp, and then then you can kind of sit into that position to grab your rail on your backside.
Yeah,
it's really impressive when guys do it, and I would love to be able to think of something off the top of my head where somebody does it on their backhand and doesn't grab the rail. I think that's really beautiful.
I feel like Kelly did that in a
Kelly
contest.
does it a lot. John does it.
John does it a lot too, yeah.
I feel like JOB does it.
It's just not in a lot of... it's definitely not applicable for a lot of the waves on tour, like Chopu or... Like,
It's like
Chopu's like kind of like
no, like it's like a small
full commitment,
like a small Fiji day, or even a small Chopu day, like when you've gotta like just sit in the tube as opposed to run through race through it.
I agree, but I do think that's a great technique. Is that mid face check stall, but it's not a great way to make it out. It's really tough to manage your speed once you've sort of wiped it all, and now you gotta like
I would agree the make rate, but I think it's one of the easiest ways to.
It's beautiful too.
Yeah, because if you check in the right place and you're just set, you've got the perfect line set. Once you make that check, you don't have to do anything.
Yeah,
you're coasting.
Yeah, ideally, yep, exactly. I totally agree.
We know how you love coasting.
Coasting.
The other thing too, with like as far as getting caught up in the foam ball with like trying to check and then being too far behind it. The double hand drag too, you can end up way high up and then just like get like
kind of like pivoting
taking over the
hands.
Falls or like just end up like even when I got real into it a couple of years ago, there were a couple waves where I'd come out so high in the tube, like up near the top little bit of the tube, like
and then off the back.
No. Well, yeah, that is a risk you run too, right? And, but no, like, that could happen also. But I'd come out super high up, and then I'd have to like work my way back down to the bottom of the wave to then go and do another, like hit the lip again, or like just be back in the pocket because you're just way high up on the wave.
So what would we say? We'd say,
check turns.
Think about consider four points of contact, maybe on your forehand, double hand drag.
I've never heard that. Did you make that up, or is that a thing?
Well, it's like 3 points of contact is a thing. It's like like these tripods.
Yeah, I've heard the 3.
Okay.
So like 4 points of contact is basically what we're talking about with 2 hands, 2 feet engaged into what's moving. And then I think it's a little bit of like an asterisk, but like on your backhand, like the 4 points are kind of like your feet are on the board. Your one hand is on your rail, and then the other side of your torso is engaged in the wave.
Or it could
be
this
hand, or it's your offhand, way up in the face.
That's so hard to do, like without getting.
And then I really think probably though, dude, like when push comes to shove, a bare bones, biggest thing you can do without having, like tube riding's very instinctual.
Yeah.
They proved that with Bruce Irons at Chopu in a blindfold. Like they blindfolded Bruce Irons, they sent him out at Chopu, and he got like.
That's also practice and reps.
Well, and it's instinctual, and it is. It's practice and reps, but that is instinct, right? That's an applicable instinct.
It is, but instinct.
And he made a lot of waves.
Instinct.
But he also went over the falls a lot.
Instinct to me sounds more like
you can just
turtle.
Go do it.
A turtle comes out of its shell and it goes towards the moon to get to the sea. Like this is more like
developed.
It's ingrained in him over doing this for 25 years.
I mean, yes, I agree.
You have to consider that because we just don't get. We get a lot of tubes here. Like almost every time the waves are good here, it's barreling, but that's still maybe once a week. Let's say if you average it out over the whole year, like once a week or maybe twice a week, and
Can you find that clip?
It's not like somewhere it's every day.
I'm looking for a picture.
Ty, I mean, I agree with you. It's definitely derived from practice, but it's been called like, is backhand tube riding instinctual by like the surf world? That was like that's been a point of discussion. We can argue what it means, what instinctual means, but I fully agree with you. It's practice. It's reps. It's 10,000 hours going left at pipe on your backhand. Like. There's no arguing that. It definitely comes down to practice. But I think what the most important thing anybody can do that they have total control over is like try and chill out before they take off. Take it almost,
Take your time.
That's another thing. Probably the most important piece of information, like best tip I ever got from a buddy, and I saw him doing it in like 3-foot waves. And I noticed that he wasn't looking... He knew he was going to go right or he knew he was going to go left. And then he managed to time the paddle into the wave, but he never picked his head up. He kept his head down.
He just looked straight.
He kept his head straight down, and he never picked his head up, which risks being distracted, missing the wave. It takes power away from your paddle, which is already puts you at a disadvantage when you're trying to get barreled. But in 3-foot waves, he kept his head down. And he said to me, he goes, I was like, what are you doing? I'm not even looking. He's like, I'm just keeping my head down. And like, I thoughtfully applied that and like have kind of incorporated it into my surfing. Like if it's one of those waves where you're like, oh, like there's a barrel section down there and you've already, which part of the wave is that section. When you're paddling, just keep your head down, paddle hard, and then worry about like getting to like relax, but keep that head down. It improves your wave count, and it also just keeps you from getting distracted on anything else that you could possibly be thinking, like in regards to what you're going to do on the wave. Because often you hear people say, and you hear it a lot in interviews with tour guys. They're like, "Oh, did you know you were going to do?" There's some guys who are like, "Oh, I plan to do 2 snaps and then an air reverse, right? Or get to do a cutback and then do an air reverse at the end." And then there's some guys who are just like, "Yeah, I just like do with the wave what it allows me." Like I think what this whole head down thing is like, it keeps you from getting distracted on like, oh, I could bash that section before I try and pull in. Like, I think a lot of it has to do with knowing where you'd ideally pull in when you see the wave pop up and your understanding of how that wave's going to behave.
I think that translates to a lot of other sports too.
Sure.
I mean, the one that comes to mind for me, because I play golf, and like keeping your head down, like my dad's so bad at golf. And I'm like,
shout out Maz.
Again, to relax.
Well, I actually stole this from the Foreplay, the golf podcast that Barstool does, because Lurch tells this other guy, head down, we'll watch. And I started doing it to my dad. And I was like, all right, Dad, head down, I'll watch. and he just like calms down. He doesn't try to watch the ball. He doesn't try to swing out of his shoes, and he hits it so much better.
Yeah.
Like don't worry about it. AKA, like don't worry about it. Calm down. I'll watch. Like don't think about it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I think
I mean,
is it thinking about it though? I mean, you could apply that to baseball as well. Like they said, don't take your head out when you're swinging a bat. Just keep your head down, like where you're swinging to where you're making contact with the ball.
Wow,
which I think
that's gnarly.
It's just
you should catch the fastball to the dome piece.
So,
I mean, I think that's just like concentration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, calmness, like.
Yeah. You know what I
so
not
hard
trying to do too much.
It's so hard to be calm when you're throwing yourself over the ledge of a stand-up tube-sized wave.
That's it,
whole
right?
thing.
You gotta like really chill the fuck out, and you gotta like just kind of, like a lot of people surprise themselves, I think, with their ability level, right? Like. There's apparently there's guys out there who surf on the Big Wave World Tour who like, and I can't name any of them because I just don't know how this really makes sense. But I've heard really good surfers say like, there's guys out there who surf really big waves, right? And they can't like manage to pump down the line and do a turn on a small wave. And like, yeah, there's guys out there who like have total comfort in big surf or whatever. I don't know where I was going with it, but it exists.
That's weird because like it must not be guys on the tour because like I've seen almost all of them surf good in small waves. Like
I don't
maybe
know.
not all of them, but like Kai Lenny, like that guy Lucas Shumbo, who's like one of the sickest. He absolutely rips in small waves, like rips. Russell Bierke, like, do you see him going switch and getting tubed?
Right.
Like, he's good in small waves.
Well, they're definitely good in small waves. I guess, I don't know. I have heard, though, that, like, there's guys out there who surf big waves really well. Oh, so what I was saying is that people would be surprised with how much they're capable of in just, like, getting to your feet in transition on a bigger wave. Mm-hmm. Like, if you paddle hard, keep your head down, paddle hard, and just, like, do what you would normally do on a small wave, on a bigger wave, like your chances of success are pretty high.
Same thing, just scaled up.
Yeah, and like that's like the whole mental thing that you got to try and shake. I think, right? Is like, okay, like I just got to relax and just get to my feet.
Well, it's just dropping in on an 8-foot half pipe versus a 5-foot one.
Right.
It's like and it's. I mean, it is way sketchier.
Like everyone remembers their first barrel. I think that was the immediate thought I had. Like, oh. That was just like a half or a doubled version of a wave I surfed before. Like, have I been able to do this the whole time?
Yeah. I remember one. Let's say what was your best tube you remember?
Did you have to make it?
Yeah.
You had to make it?
Make. I have so many good not makes. So many good not makes.
I'm going with a not make anyway.
No, you have to do. You have to do a make. Yeah. We can do not makes, but
all right. No, best tube you ever had. Best make you ever had. Do you know it,
Phil?
Most beautiful Maldives.
Yeah.
It was just perfect.
The water there's incredible.
Yeah, the whole scene. And it was like a very slow day, not many people. One of those check turn, just perfect, clean. When it's glassy there, it's like milky glassy.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Smooth.
And
smooth
yeah,
jazz.
it just feels like
just
floating
looks
in
like
milk.
smooth jazz.
Like Mikey February.
So you had a nice. You had it. Was it a long tube or was it just a really nice vision, or the lighting was really excellent? Or?
It was.
Forehand?
I was not. I didn't think. It was one of those waves where I didn't expect a tube at all. Like, it just looks like a nice wave, big wave, went up. I think I fell behind the wave a little bit. I was like, oh,
right.
fuck. Then kind of checked up to like get back up to try to get some speed. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh shit, this is going to fucking barrel. And just pulled in. Beautiful view, like right through the beach to the palms, and went through the inside at jails. And I came out and I remember my buddy was just like, holy shit, did you just get shacked? I was like, yeah, dude.
I got shacked and there's no shacks out here. That's the best.
And you kind of like, you like weren't totally, like you were like in the moment. And then he's like, dude, you just got really tubed. And you're like, whoa, yeah, I guess I did. I guess I did.
One of those ones too, and in the session, like when you've probably had a bunch of good waves, you're not expecting anything. You're just having a good time, and then just a perfect wave, one of those perfect out of nowhere waves, and yeah, it's dope.
Nice.
True.
My best tube I ever had was not a make.
Yeah, far. But I don't
know. Probably
we've all had a lot of those.
The best tube I ever had was at Cloud Break, and it was like on the inside at Shish Kebabs. It was probably like legit 6 to 8 foot, and like Cloud Break was really, it needs to be bigger than that to really do its thing. And the whole tour was there. They were off for the day, and I remember Slater paddled up to Kieran Perot after he lost, and he was like, "Yeah, and we ran yesterday." So Slater was out, Slater was out of the event.
Yeah, bitching at Kieran Perot.
Yeah, just yelling at
that day was better.
Yeah, exactly. And the event was off, and Slater had been eliminated. I remember I was sitting next to Kieran Perot, and like Slater paddles over, and he was like, "And we surfed yesterday, right?" And I was like, "Ooh." Anyway, so
goat burn.
I was kind of like
goat burn.
I was surfing. I wasn't going to compete with those guys. Like up at the top. So 6 to 8 foot, it starts to do its thing. Cloud Break, like really when it's doing its thing, is like a bit more up the reef and out. But it was like just on the brink of doing that. And there was some guys out there. What was the do you remember in Endless Summer 2, the Fijian kid who climbs the coconut tree and drops the coconut almost onto Paddle Connell's head? Remember do you remember that kid's name?
Did they name the kid?
Yeah, his name was in the movie. Well, I don't know. He was out that day, and he's like a 40-year-old big Fijian guy.
Really?
Yeah. He's like Raimana. He's like Raimana of Fiji.
Of Fiji,
right? Yeah. He's out there, and he's getting Cloud ones break that are kind of like legitimate like Cloud Break waves. And so I didn't go up there to compete with those guys. The wave's so long, and there's so many sections, and if like they didn't really fall, but there was a handful of other people out there getting a few. And I got this one. I was actually sitting next to Parco, and like I was like, "Is he gonna go?" And I was like looking at it, and I was like, "He's not gonna go." And I was like, "Sweet." So I swung, and I turned around, and I gave it a few strokes. I was on like a 6.0, like not really a step up, but kind of like a performance step down, and. Yeah, and I got really tubed in front of Sebastian Zietz. He was paddling over the shoulder, and I was like throated at Shish Kebab, like pumping in the barrel, like going like fast. Like I was like, holy shit! Like I was like, I am like this is the deepest, fastest tube I've ever gotten, and I'm gonna come out, and I'm gonna like hit Sebastian Zietz. The guy does not need any more help.
You might chop his extra thumb off,
well,
dude.
I saw his thumb. I could see he raised his hands, dude. He raised his hands going over the shoulder to like, yeah, and I was like, I see his thumb.
It's free surgery, dude. Just
it was kind of the thing that chilled me out in the tube was Seabass like paddling over the shoulder.
Yeah, dude.
Like he's the funnest guy on tour.
Yeah, and you hear that.
I like, you know what? I ended up, so I come out and like I kick off the back and I got worked by the next two. I have this terrible habit of going of like the first wave of the set. Yeah. And that's probably why Parker didn't go. And like I got worked on the inside, dragged across the reef or whatever, which there isn't like a huge ordeal. It's a little bit of a paddle around or my buddy picked me up on the ski. But yeah, so I ended up like looping the inside like the shish kebab track with Seabass for the rest of the afternoon. And dude, I'll tell you what, he is having more fun than anybody else out there. And like he's far and away my favorite surfer on tour. But yeah, that was probably my like most memorable tube.
It's ingrained. You can tell that's ingrained. That memory's up there fresh.
Oh, dude, I'll never forget him paddling over the shoulder and like raising two hands, and I'm just like, you know, like basically stand up, but I'm a little bit crouched because I'm really racing. I'm like, I'm gonna make this thing, like going fast, and it was long and like. I probably didn't get spit out, you know, because I was like just getting out.
Yeah.
But
just making it.
I kicked off the back, and then I got worked, and I paddled to Seabass, and he was like, "Sick one, brah." it was pretty cool. I think that tube had some extra special adds. You know, there's a lot of extra memory there, like. Based on like where I was, who was in the water, and like who saw it, you know.
Doug Goat.
Yeah, Slate, dude. I'll tell you what, Slater gets more waves out there. The whole tour was out there, and all like the local good guys were out there, and then a handful of guys who were there for the swell. And Slater is just looping everyone.
The old goat. He's taking off on goat tricks.
He was taking off on waves on the inside, but like. Way up the reef that nobody was even looking at. And I mean, he really didn't make that many either. Really? Like it was surprising.
He's just so comfortable.
I hold him as like this guy who would never fall or who would never not make a wave. And he was so comfortable out there that he was getting...
treating it like a beachy, like...
Yeah, he was just getting ones that like, you know, I would have scrapped for.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to sit way in there to go scrap for it. And he was doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then I'll never... So I think all that kind of like played into that tube. But yeah, all things considered, that's probably my most memorable. I mean, I remember my first one, and that was pretty amazing. But yeah, that one's probably like the one that sticks out most in my memory is like that was an epic tube ride.
I don't think I remember my first tube ever. I have a horrible memory. So that's like the precursor, the asterisk, this whole thing. I have such a bad memory that like possibly I've had better ones that I can't really remember. One that does stand out, and I guess this is, I mean, your story about like all the pros and stuff. I have a separate, like just like super vivid memory of a day like that, but of me getting worked. Like not of any.
Well, we're talking makes here. We're talking makes.
Makes wise.
Because epic, no makes.
Makes wise. I think Fisher the best day at TV was TV. Remember, it was a really square one, and it was like bumpy. And you're like, and you and Fisher both looked. You're like, oh, he's gonna get crushed. And I just came out.
Oh yeah, I do remember that. I do remember that.
This wave was probably maybe 4 feet. Like maybe.
Where was it?
But it was just in Samoa.
Okay.
It's like the best.
It's like
this wave is probably the best wave.
It's the funnest wave I've ever surfed.
On Earth.
It's
on Earth.
Left or right?
Both.
It's an A-frame. It starts out as a tube. And then just goes into a trestle-style wall for like 4 turns.
You can
after
backdoor it from each side too.
Yeah, it's a super peaky. It just does like it's like a really pointy like like
wedges.
it's like a wedge.
It
It's a
wedges.
wedge.
It has a refraction, but the refraction doesn't actually come across the front of the wave like most wedges that you'd see, like most common wedges. The wedge
It's
actually...
like a wave pool.
It is a wave pool. It's
Yeah.
Waco.
Yeah.
It
In the
is
ocean.
basically Waco, like, but both ways. And I mean, dude, it's just
that was my first session
there,
in
yeah.
Samoa. Like probably my third wave.
How many guys were out?
Maybe,
Wait. Don't even say.
No, no, there were a lot that day because it was
Oh, yeah,
it was,
the
a, it
local
was a
lot
lot of guests, and then it was
Oh, yes.
there was a
Okay.
lot of the guys who lived there who were like also like expat type people from Australia.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people out that day, but it didn't really matter because again, it's like a wave pool,
And
this thing
everybody's
was
going
just-
two different directions.
just churning out waves, and a lot of the guests were older guys, and they're going sort of on the softer right or whatever.
Ty may have been a little hungry.
But I mean, I'm starving. But I remember this really square double up came through, and again, it was like maybe 4 foot, but it was just such a square wave when it did that double up thing and that wedge thing.
I remember thinking and saying to Matt, like, he ain't making that. And Matt was like, he makes not making that one,
Fisher. Yeah, let's take a break and talk about Fisher.
Well, no,
This
finish your
guy
tube
is
story.
Such a legend. So it was like really square, perfect blue water, like almost like Maldives style. Maybe not that perfect, and it's kind of like a rock bottom river mouth. So it's less like looking down, seeing blue and coral and more,
Yeah.
but
It's
still
a little fresh watery.
yeah, but still really blue water, like still really clean, like it's still the Indian Ocean.
It's the
I guess the
Pacific.
Pacific, yeah, the Pacific.
Samoa.
I don't know, but it could just as well pass for the Indian Ocean. I don't know,
For sure. It's
Little,
beautiful.
little less blue and perfect, but yeah. And then the funniest part about that too is I came out and it was still really square. Where I came out and I tried to hit the lip and I got super vertical with it, and like then I just got pitched because I
Nice.
hit the lip in such a critical section that like I just couldn't come down off it. Like I just like hit it and then just like fell.
So I was really curious. I wanted you to finish the wave, your description of the wave, because like this wave like does that. Like it, especially on the left, you get like this like double up square tube, and then like you come out going really fast because it's that wedge is kind of like wrapping the corner of the reef, and then you're looking at like basically a
wall,
another double up
Yeah.
kind of like thing.
I should have pulled back in, but
It's
I
the
hit
worst part. That's the worst part on the reef where you went to hit the lip and just got like pitched.
Yeah.
It's like the worst part of the reef to get caught on duck diving, like paddling back out.
So heavy right there.
It's really heavy
I
there.
could have pulled back in, but I came flying out of the tube and I was like, oh, well, there's still a wall. And I hit it. And then I just like hit this like it was like a wall, and I just But that was awesome, and that was a super memorable wave. But Fisher's an absolute legend. This guy has a section of like a deep water right in Samoa at Salani Surf Resort, named after him, the Fish Bowl.
So this guy Matt Fisher, it's been 3 years since I saw him, right? But he's 55 years old. He was 50 something like that when I lived there. And he is the CEO of the ANZ Bank in the South Pacific branches, right? So he oversaw the ANZ Bank in like Vanuatu, Fiji, Samoa, Tonga, right? And he was headquartered in Samoa.
He surfs so
Sick.
good, dude.
He surfs sick, right? He's from Torquay and he's got a house in Tasmania, and he is your like typical mad Australian dude. He just happens to be the CEO of like a bank branch.
Yeah.
Wait, like a full, the entire bank, or
Yeah.
just one
That
branch?
region.
The region.
No,
so
the
he was the
region.
regional, like, so ANZ is the biggest bank in the Southern Hemisphere. And
Okay.
he was in charge of the South Pacific branches, all
damn.
of the branches, right?
No, he's a boss.
He's a
but
big-time dude.
He lived at Bells Beach and he surfed like it. He surfed like Potts or like any one of
Yeah,
those.
so classic and aggressive.
Such a good turn, such a good tube rider.
Deep.
He would be so yeah. So this section, I don't know if like we were saying it, and a couple of the guests and the boatmen. It was kind of a silly thing, but
the
resort
kind of calls it like the fishbowl, right? So you can sit and make like 100%. If you sit at one corner of the reef, but he tends especially when there's like heaps of guests and he wants to go for a surf at the wave in front of the resort, and he is way deeper than everybody else.
Like by like
100 yards.
100 yards, yeah. But he comes
shit.
in hot. This guy again.
He wakes up everyone.
He mates, come on, boys! Hey, it's pumping out there. Yeah, 55 years old. He's like, I read about 6-7 emails this morning. He's like, came over. He's like, you boys are still sleeping. It's like 5:15 at this point. He's knocking on
guest doors. He was knocking on my guests' doors to get them going. Like,
damn.
If it was going to be good, he was at the resort before. Way before I was, because I had boatmen who were up first getting the boats ready, and I had other responsibilities. He'd be there before dawn knocking on guests' doors that he didn't know. Total strangers.
Would he go to work after this? Or?
Well, he would. if it was pumping, no. Obviously
surf
not.
for 6-7 hours.
Yeah, he would surf for a long time. He'd bring 2 boards. He'd bring his lunch on the boat. It's heaps of sun cream.
So a typical day in Fisher is like he would get up, he'd tell us, like he'd write like 5 emails. He'd go surf for like 4 hours, and then he'd maybe shoot off a couple more emails, and then go out on his boat for the rest of the afternoon from fish.
Yeah, he was a mad fisherman, dude. He had this little bar crusher. Is this Australian type of boat. And I fished with him. We did 5 International Game Fishing Association tournaments, and I fished with him for 4 of them. We won the 4 that I fished with him in. He was like crushing competition. He was coming in from like all over the world with their boats, like big buy-ins in Calcutta.
This thing was like a 20-foot.
It was a 20-foot tinny with like 100 like Suzuki on it or something. And dude, he ran this thing so hard. Like you'd be like 8 foot at 14, 15 seconds and windy. And he was flying full throttle out to go fish. Like, hang on, boys, he's a big one. Like total crazy mad. You're just like your typical crazy mad Australian guy. Like you think the Mad Hooies are crazy. Well, he's doing what they do, and he also happens to be the CEO of like a huge bank branch.
That's
you
just
know, like
alpha.
The nicest guy you'll ever meet.
I'm
too.
going to see him in March. I'm going to Tasmania for 2 weeks, and I'm in touch with him about staying at one of his houses in Tasmania for a few days of the trip.
Dude,
hope to fish, hope to surf with him.
So nice and generous too. Like, oh yeah, come to my house.
Oh
like,
yeah, we stayed at his house.
Yeah, he made
that was Spanish mackerel.
Yeah,
right.
Like,
we ate dinner there.
He would just like invite us to dinner. Like, there's a super nice guy.
Yeah,
he was an absolute
total
legend. He surfed so good. There were times when like. Granted, I was, really enthralled with like being in Samoa. Waves were pumping. Like this legendary guy. I was like, I literally said like, this guy surfs like Slater. Like,
he literally did.
He is so good.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
He never falls.
No,
he never falls. He can surf from that peak
Yeah.
way up the reef.
I do have a video of him not making it too, but he was like so deep and he was in it for so long.
Can we post it later?
Yeah, we can.
If you can find it.
The fish.
Yeah, we're posting
Matt
it.
Kant.
Instagram. So those are our tube. Those are our tube tips.
We got
more
bit
like
of
Matt
tangent
Fisher.
there. Yeah.
Unfortunately, dude, I can't find him on any social media. He's smarter than that. But I don't know. I'll email him and let him know we were talking to him and trying to get some feedback.
We should
Google
post
the
video.
bank.
Yeah, well, you can
Shouldn't
see his
he be
picture there
the
probably.
CEO?
We should post
Oh, he's
it.
retired. He got the
okay.
gold watch at like 58 or whatever. He's just
Yeah.
living.
What
Yeah.
a legend.
I was going to say, it's like, does he actively work?
No, not
while
anymore.
he's-
He actually moved. Last I understand, he moved back to splitting time between Tasmania and Torquay. I mean, dude, he loves Bells Beach. I'm pretty sure he's won like the Bells Beach Masters event
Like
a
local
handful of
event or
times.
something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like the states. So they have like states in
Right.
Australia, right? And he's won the Masters division like a bunch of times. Dude, he's so aggro.
I mean, the fact that it's also pretty inspirational that he's that old and still surfs for like 5+ hours at a time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he doesn't do anything really other than surf to be fit.
Well, yeah, but that's also a life where he gets to surf good waves every day.
Yeah.
Like that's, and never drop that, I don't think. And that was like a big thing with like guests getting hurt. It's like if they don't surf a lot and then like this happened to me. Like if you don't surf a lot and then you go and you surf hard, like 5, 6, 7 hours a day for a week straight, like your paddle muscles are just not up to snuff.
Yeah.
And that's how you hurt yourself. But he was just always on it, I think.
All right, so tube riding, slow it down in your mind. Evenly distribute that weight. Stall. Check chill turns. Out. I'm going to be a full supporter of keep your head down while you're paddling.
Yeah.
And visualize that section out in front of you before you spin. You can identify it before you spin. So, visualize that. That was a request from listener Van Vu.
Van.
Thanks, Van, for listening. All right. How we travel
and strike missions. Are they executable?
Are they worth it?
And if so, how?
Because that was the conversation in the text message. That's what I got from your point, Ty. It's like, you don't really think they're worth it. Strike mission.
I think day one, episode 1, we talked a bit about like our differences as far as Drew worked at resorts. Phil goes for 2 to 5 months at a time wherever he goes because he's a remote travel web developer. And then I typically do like the 10-day trip, whether it's through a company or a lot of times just going to different little resorts or what have you in like Central America usually. I think so for me. Up until a couple months ago, I've had like a corporate job since I graduated college. So that's like, 2 to 3 weeks a year of paid vacation. And so I really haven't, since I've been out on my own, making my own money, I generally don't take any trips other than surf trips. I put up a big stink if like, my girlfriend wants to go on a ski trip or do anything other than a surf trip, I do not like it.
Well, realistically, you work a corporate job in the States. You don't have more than 2 trips in a year, really. A strike mission maybe you could do. If you do a long weekend, you have maybe, 5 or 6 of those in a calendar year?
It's a super un-American thing that we do. Like,
what's that?
Not giving any vacation time. It's like people are just now figuring out like, oh, you know what? Maybe working a ton and crushing yourself isn't the best thing to do. It's like Americans are just realizing this, and Europeans and Australians are just laughing at us. It's like, yeah, duh. Like,
I mean,
take
especially
like a month
the French.
off every year at least. French. But then like there are drawbacks. Like, so what I do is like construction, and if we got to get materials from Italy, like they just shut down for all of August. So like if we have to finish a building in September, we're screwed if we can't get these cabinets from Italy or this, stone. Yeah. And that is like that's like the extreme where it's like, okay, America's obviously like this go, and everywhere, and these other places are somewhere in between with like Italy, France being at the far end of the spectrum with like, we just relax. Like you got to find a happy medium. But what America does is like so unchill.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a medium within the States and like the work ethic that we have, even just maybe long weekends, or I think this is happening a lot, just flexibilities of days. Like, it makes me more productive and want to work more. Oh. If I could wake up and surf for 4 hours, I'll stay up till midnight working for you.
We know that, Phil. You up to 3 last night.
Like it just gives me energy to work harder, to surf more or go on a new trip.
I always find before, especially, and after my surf trips, I go into like super focus mode to get a lot of work done, to get it done so I don't have to worry about anything while I'm going on this trip. And then when I get back, if I've got to catch up, it's like I feel so fulfilled. I'm so excited going into it that I'm like, yeah, I'll do tons of work because guess what? Next week, I get to just surf for the entire week. And then I get back and I'm like, yeah, I'll do a ton of work because like I just got to surf for an entire week. Like, so there's that. And I think companies are finally starting to realize it. But I mean, I quit my job a couple of months ago, and now I work for myself. So really, it's at my discretion to some degree. I mean, I'm trying to build a business, so I can't just be gone for a month. That's pretty unrealistic. But I can probably do more 1 week trips than I would otherwise.
And I think that also has. It's funny. Like I lived in Costa Rica for about 3-4 years on and off. And it's much more acceptable in a place where surfing is much more mainstream. Like there, for example, you watch sunset every night. And if someone was getting after you to like get something done around that time, it's, hey man, like fuck off. I'm going to have a beer for sunset. You know,
Yeah.
There's just things that like waves there are part of the lifestyle. I'm sure it's similar in Hawaii. Like if there's pumping pipe, don't expect to get something done. Like,
yeah.
People are going to go surf and enjoy it while it's there, and then they'll get to work.
That's so not the case around here.
Oh my God.
Not even close. Couldn't be more opposite.
It's like you're almost afraid to tell people that you do surf sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't surf.
Because it's like a stigma that you're fucking, yeah.
Like you're like the guy's gonna just leave work randomly.
But
so random. He goes to work when the wind is offshore.
think about it.
The wind's in this
like,
direction. This guy's not here.
Other than like a few cities like Tokyo, Hong Kong, I wouldn't even say London. Like there are very few, maybe like Munich. Not even. There are very few other places in the world where you can live that compared to where we live, as far as people's propensity to work.
Yeah.
Tons and not take time off and try to move society forward. I mean, that's like, and by forward, I mean like with the U.S. idea of forward, which is like constantly progressing towards more everything.
There is no
more money
end goal. It's just more
engineering,
more everything. Like we just overdoing shit. So with that said,
let me ask you this then, Ty. So when you book a trip, you look at historical averages from when a place is going to be good, right? You say, okay,
I use Wave Trotter.
You use Wave Trotter, and they're going to give you a
baby.
recommendation around your time frame.
Honestly, Surfline used to have.
It was easier to access. I think you could still find it.
Well, you have to go back on. I don't know if you
what
can go
is it?
back onto their old website or not.
Let's tell them what it is.
So, I mean, well, no, it used to be the Surfline's new website. They got rid of the travel maps portion of it, where you can go find the historic best months.
Yeah.
So now Wave Trotter conveniently
Best
does
Bet.
have that.
It's not Best Bet, not to be confused with Best Bet.
No. It's. I can click on a region and it'll give by months. I mean, I have
Waves
a
over.
book.
It says it tells you the number of days of waves over 3 foot,
X
over
amount
4
of feet,
foot,
yeah.
over 5 foot.
World
over 6 foot.
Where am I
World
going
Surf
in
Riders
chain?
Guide is a book that I have that is really good for that too. But anyways, none of it compares to Wave Trotter because that actually gives all of these Surfline historical data, but in a more succinct way.
Are you
Dude,
pulling it up, Phil?
Yeah, it's up.
So
It really is the best.
so
Someone
here's
just knows
compared to
about
your
it.
own website?
I kind of been keeping it to myself. Oh, I'm talking about Wave Trotter. Sorry, I kind of zoned out. I was browsing where I'm going to go and jam.
this is right. So this is a very common technique for surf travel, right? A lot of guys work for themselves. A lot of guys like to surf. A lot of guys go on trips 3 times a year for a week and a half over the course of the year. Now, based on what kind of waves you're looking for, ideally you probably want it to be warm. Right? You go to a service like a booking agency who's in cahoots with a surf resort or a charter boat or whatever, and like they go and you express interest in this place because of what the literature says, right?
Yeah, I mean, that would be I've really only done that once or twice. Once, really only once. I mean, so like
you got hosed in the Maldives.
Yeah, the
Was
waves
that,
were bad.
did
That's
you
the
use
only
that
time I've
technique?
ever really done that. Other than that, I'd go to Costa because our good friend has a house there, or I went to visit you in Samoa, or the Indo-Mentawais trip I took, I really just found on Instagram more or less, and I just DM them. I might have seen it on one of the booking agencies, but then I just went straight, just DM'd the owner, which is an interesting topic in and of itself.
Right.
Like, just cutting out the broker, because, like, you don't need to. Like, if I can just DM the guy, and I'm good, they can... If they're good at social media, like, everyone's going to know. Everyone knows about Kandui. Everyone knows about, Pit Stop Hill and Mentawais. It's like everyone knows about most of these resorts because they're good at social media.
So that's a perfectly fine way to do it. You more often than not, you're going to get good surf because you're being steered in a direction that historically has good surf, good wind. In this region at that period of time where you have the ability to go, right? 8 times out of 10, maybe less, I don't know, between 5 and 9 times out of 10, you'll get good surf.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the best recipe for total success, right? As we know, my opinion differs from yours based on...
Well, wait.
The ultimate recipe
do you agree that your opinion differs in that, Ty?
No.
True.
No.
Good point.
Or is it just your lifestyle with work that you don't?
Oh, absolutely.
Live
Nice,
That's a valid point. What I was going to say is the ultimate recipe is what the pros do. Obviously, having no schedule, having...
Whoa, they have a schedule for sure.
Well, for the WSL guys...
Well, don't forget the schedule is scheduled to go to where it's best historically.
Yes. I'm talking if Slater...
I just follow them around, honestly.
If Slater's out of season or between contests and he sees a swell somewhere...
He's out there.
He has infinite resources to be there. I mean, even some of the pros who aren't Slater, like...
Infinite.
Yeah, they have their sponsors paying for flights, and so they can take a last-minute flight to wherever the swell's going to be best in the world. I mean, I think what Drew's getting at is, like, strike mission-wise, being able to look at a forecast, say, oh, it's going to be sick there in a week from now. I'm going to send it, and what I would love to do that too. And my hesitation with that is, even me working a corporate job and making more money than the next surf bum who's not working a corporate job, I still don't feel like coughing up what would potentially be 2 times the regular flight amount is worth it to knowing you're going to score. Because there's something, and Phil brought up a good point too, like you sort of have to prorate all these costs. Like the cost of a board, I brought it up with a Waco, the cost of the flight, those things... The longer you go for, the less that cost per day of that flight is. Versus Drew's point is if you can get a discounted stay at a place, and he hasn't gotten into his full scheme, but essentially it's if you can go to an off-season place because you know it's going to be pumping, your flight's going to be more expensive, but you could get cheaper lodging. The lodging on a nightly basis... you still have to pay it on a nightly basis. But generally, it's you pay that amount per night. But the flight, you don't pay that amount per day. You just pay for that flight once. So the longer you stay, the more that's dispersed across your time there.
All right.
That's what I struggle with.
I think
I want to know what is... You're not a remote... Okay, you are a work remotely web designer, right? Web developer who runs his own business, right? You are that. But let's say you're here until January, tentatively, right? That's in our last conversation. But let's say, for argument's sake, you're so busy with work that you can't get the fuck out of New Jersey until June. Are you going...
Phil's having a panic attack.
How are you going to do it? How are you going to do it? I mean, you've got meetings, regularly. How are you going to do it?
I mean, to be honest,
how are you going to go for a trip?
How am I going to... I'm going to take a shorter trip. I would probably go back to Costa. I know the areas that I can set up really quick.
Yeah.
Really, Costa and Bali are the 2 areas where I know within 24 hours I can have housing, transportation, good places with the internet, and be set up with a lifestyle that I can hit the ground running in 1-2 days.
But what Drew's saying, I think, is if you have meetings and like you only get
You
a
can't
week or
quite
two,
get to Indo.
Yeah, Bali. He's saying Bali is probably out of the question. So you're saying Costa.
Costa is a very valuable option. I don't disagree with anybody.
And it's pretty consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Central America, all of Central America is pretty good bet.
Yeah.
I've been there probably 10 times now for like 10 days at a time. And I've never seen a day below chest high.
So,
and I think
in all seasons.
I think, yeah, with the shorter the flight, the less you feel like you're missing out, or if there aren't good waves, you don't feel as bad. You can get back quicker. The flight's going to be cheaper. It's
now,
just more of a wild card you can throw out there.
How often, like what is in your comfort level? What's your comfort level about booking that flight? Like, are you going to book it 2 months in advance when you know you have this window in your schedule open?
I've gotten pretty good at this. So international, you got to try to get at least like 1.5 months before.
In advance.
So that's why like I am freaking out a little bit right now because Jan is like a month and a half away. You get into December, those Jan prices are probably, like I was looking at South Africa, probably in the one way, like 600 now. That's going to jump up to like 900 by next month or in a couple weeks.
So I take a little bit of a fundamentally different approach. And I think what's fundamentally different about it is my comfort in my most of the time it's not really mine. It might be a buddy's, but confidence in like a forecast, right? Like I have done Caribbean coast. I've done Caribbean Central America 1 day out. I've done Northern Nicaragua 2 days out. I've booked 2 days out, and I've been guaranteed good surf.
Yeah.
To me, that's the difference. Right?
Wasn't that all when you had a corporate finance job?
No.
Like that was
both of those instances was when I was at the motel.
Oh.
And then even more recently, before any sort of like really super solid structured job, Barbados scored, right? And I booked that it was definitely under 5 days in advance of landing in Barbados. So to me, I'm willing to eat, and this is coming from me, I'm willing to eat the price on a more expensive flight and be confident in the forecast to guarantee good surf.
It's funny that there's so many factors that go into it because, like, I don't know how much you spent on that trip, but see, my thinking, because of the flexibility of my work schedule, even if it was like perfect forecast, I'm thinking, okay, shit, it's, maybe a 800 round trip flight. Got to get a place for 4 days. It's going to add up. It's going to be over $1,000. And that $1,000, I'm thinking, oh, okay, that's like a month in Bali. Living.
Sure.
Complete living.
Sure.
I will
How
score
many good days are you going to get?
Given the time that you've created for yourself to go to Bali and while you can work there.
Right.
Which is a very nice arrangement you've made for yourself.
Right.
I don't take anything away from that.
But I think that's a factor of
But even I have
whether
some of that.
you agree with
You do. Tyler, yours
mission.
is more similar to that than.
But I'm bad at flights, and this is why it bothers me.
Well, that's because you don't. You're probably not that gritty about it.
No, I look at
you're price
every.
agnostic.
I look like at all of them, and I get like super perturbed if it goes from $400 to $425. Like bothers the hell out of me. But one thing that I just learned recently, which I feel really stupid for not knowing this, is when you search for flights, you should use an incognito window. Because what they do is you search for the flight, you don't book it, you go and search the next day, it's gone up by $50.
Right, because they know you're looking at it again.
Yeah, they have there's no regulation regarding that, to my knowledge. So,
I don't think you can do it as
Kush
much
told me
now,
to do
but
that.
you used to be able to use it like a VPN and
Right.
like pretend
Yeah.
you're in the Philippines, and they
But
would
how
sell it
crazy-
cheaper to people there.
How crazy is that? That seems like it should be illegal. Like that seems like it's a
Right,
little
yeah,
beyond
price gouging.
capitalism.
It's a little bit price
It's like
gouging.
collusion
It's
and
like,
price
It's like
gouging.
after like a natural
It's like
disaster and the
if
fuel
me and
goes
Drew
up.
walked
like
into a
Martin
coffee
Shkreli.
shop and the guy was like, $2, and then Ty walks in and he's
They're like, oh, nice shoes, $10.
Yeah, it honestly seems like that.
I mean, really?
So-
But so I don't know. I mean that
Right, so we were talking, right? It's cold. There's a nice forecast for us, fortunately, in the near future.
there's a threshold. Like if it's a $400 flight that goes up to
So there's a
500,
threshold.
maybe I can suck that up. But if it's a flight that I know should be 400
Right.
and it's 900, I'm just like, oh, it's just like a dagger.
Yeah.
think
And this is coming from me.
That's coming
I
from
have-
Hungry Man.
I have no Hungry Man, and I have no regard for spending money.
Usually you don't, and I'm surprised to
Especially
hear
on
you say this.
surf.
I almost think you're full of shit.
No,
Because it $100, dude,
it pains me. Like
for good surf.
No, for a good example, and this is
Pains you to the
different
core.
because this is honestly this is biased. But like I went to Mentawais for $1,200, and that included going to Tokyo and then going to Jakarta and then Padang. But then to go to Tokyo with my girlfriend, just to go to Tokyo was $2,000.
Yeah.
So that was like
That crushed you
$800
then, yeah.
more with 2 less flights.
That's because you
It
have
was
to
the same
justify
flight.
the Indo trip by taking your girlfriend to Japan.
No, I know, and it was, but it was
Which
just,
is we'll get there, folks.
it was the same flight, and I paid $2,000
Right.
versus that same flight plus
Plus
2
2 more stops.
and so that wasn't a surf trip, so it was especially painful. But even still,
You
there,
didn't surf Japan?
No, there are
Oh.
times when I've gone to Costa
what's he
when
doing?
I look at the flights and it's like 700-800, and I know it should be 400, and I like don't book it because I'm just pissed. I'm just
Yeah.
like, no,
I
fuck you
think-
guys.
think, dude,
I just don't get it. Like the airlines are such scumbags. I feel like it's like big pharma. It's like they all of a sudden are
Big
charging
pharma,
so much.
but you can get anywhere in
I
the
will
world
give-
for like $500
I will
right
give
now.
the
We live in a
best-
pretty dope time.
$125 airline cheat you can possibly have.
Whoa.
All
Throw
right.
it out there.
Normally, how much does a board cost you? And like, right, it's not by bag, it's by board, right? So,
Not always.
I guess depending
Depends
on
on
the
the
airline.
airline.
Yeah.
By weight at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
When you pack your board bag, you take monofilament clear fishing line and you tie it to the handle of your board bag. When you go put it on that scale, you keep the
I've
mono.
never seen them actually do it by weight.
I
What?
have more often it's board
Always. dude.
count.
Really?
I've been many places.
I feel like it's
Always by
either.
weight.
I've always either seen it be board count or just do you have a board bag? It's X amount.
So
I think that's
you can
a
also call
States
them
thing.
skim boards. But dude, this trick I learned this trick.
Golf club
Exactly. It's
skis.
a water ski.
Bullshit that skis are not. I
And they're
think
heavier
skis are
with
not.
bindings. I mean, anything
Skis are
oversized
free,
is
I
good.
think.
Anything oversized. Well, it depends on your
Dude,
destination.
It totally depends on airline. Like,
Okay.
trust me, there's
Anyway,
something
this-
on Wave Trotter, and
Yeah,
you
we
can
get it.
you
You-
can go
you
to
hang
all
on
the
it.
places.
You hang
pull
on
it in your
to-
pocket and you lift the weight off the scale on your board bag.
So
It
ridiculous.
works. It works.
Yeah.
It really does work. But Ty, what I wanted to mention about the Costa
Make sure you
Rica
get 50
thing,
pound test.
50-pound test will help. There'll be no stretching in your mono. Then you can
Yeah.
use it for when you get to your destination. Ty, I think what's different. Well, so somewhere like Costa Rica in particular, if you probably looked at waves, and days of waves annually, it exceeds
United.
like the global average probably by a fair bit. Days of waves over.
It's like 330 days a year.
Call it over
It's good waves
waist
there.
high, right? It's nice doing something that's comfortable. And like if you know that flight's going to be $425 and you don't need to know what the forecast is going to be like. I mean, you got to remember, dude, like there's a little we have a distinct advantage in that place as a destination given the location of a most of the time free place to stay.
Yeah. But even if
And
I'm
I think we have a distinct advantage here being so close to
The
four
airports.
major airports.
That's true,
in
too.
the New York area.
That's Very true. Like if you don't
Super
take advantage
cheap
of that,
flights.
like
Well, but the other
Anyway.
thing to be said about Costa too is a lot of times when I don't stay at Joey's, even if I'm paying for my lodging, I just know the area.
Yeah.
I know where to check when.
Right.
so. My point is like what really becomes deterring about a strike mission is knowledge. You know, what you don't know can be that like X factor. If you aren't confident in your forecasting ability or whoever has convinced you to go to this location, that's when you doubt spending the $850 on a round trip ticket that should be $400. That's when those doubts start creeping into your head. I've got a good buddy who was like, he's like, guy, it's going to be on in Barbados. Like, we're going. And I was like, I respect his forecasting capabilities. And like, he was like, guy, we're going. And we paid the $200 more that it cost us to book 5 days out than it would have if we booked a month out.
See, that doesn't bother me.
We scored. And it was all because of confidence in the ability to forecast.
I'm talking when flights go from 400 to like 1100. Like I just suck at finding flights. I think. I don't know.
Let's take an example. So Puerto Rico was going to be good like next week, I think, and
I mean, but
round
this is
trip
all
from New York is
all
probably
contingent
like
on the forecast.
Yeah.
Very
But
clear.
say it's tomorrow or in the next 2 days it was going to go off, and a normal flight from New York is like 300. Say it's like 600 now. Are you booking that?
If the forecast is good, yeah.
Yeah.
How
Absolutely.
many for a 2
For a
day trip?
3 day trip, let's say.
100%.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. Like that.
I don't know what to say. Like I have a lot of money, and like that bothers me. Like
I don't know. How
Yeah,
that bothers you.
I
You're
feel
gonna
the
get
same
good
just
waves.
because I know that 600 could bring. I could go anywhere else. That's a sick ass place in Bali for 1 month. Like living expenses. So
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know
It is
why.
hard.
but that's in 8 months' time from now.
well, I mean that could be anywhere. That could be what else.
Phil's
is
got
good?
such a different perspective. I mean, for me, it's
Time is like not an issue. for me.
I'm willing
I
to
just-
pay. I'm willing to pay to get the best possible waves I can, if like the time allows.
Yeah.
You know, if my schedule's open and like I'm sick of being cold and it's going to cost a bit extra to go somewhere where I know it's going to be good, I'm going to pay. You know, I'll be. If I have the means, I'm going to do it.
What would I mean? Yeah.
So it's a,
what would
it's
you
a
do if you
threshold
just
thing.
had?
It's a threshold thing, but to get on a flight at JFK to go to Aguadilla, knowing it's going to be 6 foot and offshore for an additional $150 each way, I would do that.
Yeah.
For 2 days, even. I would personally. You wouldn't. Tom?
no, well that gets into regardless of additional, just what is the aggregate price of the flight and how many days are you there? Like it just feels ridiculous to spend $800 to go somewhere for 2 days.
Yeah.
Just feels ridiculous.
Is that
I don't
because
know
you're
what
not
it
going to
is.
make any?
Well, that is a factor as well. Like, if you haven't been surfing we haven't had good waves in a
you'll
couple.
be hesitant.
You know, you go down there for 2 days, it's pumping. Usually, I'd say when I get to a place,
How
it
many
takes
good
me a
ones are you
week
really
to
gonna
really
get?
get my paddle muscles in and like feel like locked in.
Yeah, I would
My
want to
first
go.
three.
I would want to go in the near future, realistically, because we've been surfing a lot in the past couple
Yeah.
months,
Mm-hmm.
and then it just drops off. Like I was looking at going on a trip in February. Like I'm gonna be surfing like once a week, if that, leading up to it. So yeah, if I go somewhere that's sick, like it'll just be frustrating because it won't be in paddle shape. Like regardless of how much I work out. I mean, I work out every day, but it's just different. You're not paddling.
Do you think that like am I crazy to think that like seats open up and sometimes prices actually are cheaper?
Dude,
So
Maybe, but that's what I'm saying. I never
or
seem
miles,
to find that.
or miles.
I never seem
using
to find
miles.
those.
find a girlfriend that is a flight attendant.
Yeah, family friends is epic. You know, people who 100% feel like the family friends deal
Yeah.
rules.
Or just marry
So
one. Fuck it.
different strokes for different folks. I like the strike. Sometimes it's more expensive and it sets me back, and I don't get to do that 2 or 3 week long trip. But
I would like to test it, like do a year, get a corporate job, hell, if you had Fridays off for a whole year, would that be a complete game changer?
I would.
dude,
I feel like I would take so many flights
If you
down.
can go Thursday night, that's just like, that makes a big difference.
It really does. All
I
right,
think it's the exact
let's
same
push
thing.
for it.
Yeah, well, they just recently had a 4-day, 40-hour work week somewhere in like it was most productive week
I
that
just-
the
yeah,
country
I think
ever
in
had.
Japan or
In Japan,
something.
yeah.
I'm sort of like closer to Phil now in that like I now have at my own company, like I have to now put deals together myself in order to make money. So it's like, there's that too. How do you gauge? And I can't do it remotely. Like when I'm not there, like maybe I can shoot off a couple emails, but like I can't sit there and do spreadsheets because like fuck that. Like
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like I guess like I can't do it to the degree where I could do it for an extended period of time. I can sustain that for like a week at a time, and so that comes into play too.
Well,
You just gotta have months where you don't build.
you just got to take months off at a time.
My intention is to build this business up and get to a place where I can take a month to 2 months off a year and go somewhere, whether I get a house in Costa.
I mean, yeah, and some of us might be thinking that's a little crazy. Some of the people in the States might think, oh yeah, that's wild, but that is the norm.
People do that.
everywhere around the world.
2019.
Everyone has a month
Americans do it to some of them, but you have to be
Very
creative
rare.
about it. You can't be a corporate person to do that.
Yeah, or you just be
Or you're
really
in
good.
tech.
You just got to be really good at figuring out your days.
off. Yeah.
All right, Todd, we want to give some shout outs here.
Yeah, today
We had a nice one on the Instagram,
Yeah,
folks.
we grammed.
Who was that?
It was Pat Gadowskis. No, it was
it's
Tanner.
Dane.
It was Tanner. It was Tanner. No, that wasn't Dane. That was Tanner, but it looked like a Dane
Turn.
and that's what I said.
I just
to
saw
him.
the screenshot.
I said something like, I forget, but I was like, dude, so looking like your brother, so sick.
Stokerama.
Ew! And he followed us, or I don't know if he followed us, but he commented back to us, dude, because the sickest goofy foot surfing I've ever seen was Dane Gadowskis in person. I've seen him twice. Once at the Quickie Pro in New York, and once in Costa at a pumping reef break where he was getting soaked up and hitting the lip. You know, I talked about like hitting the lip at TV, like on the end section where it's like a bowl. He was hitting the lip, just cracking it in the gnarliest places. I love Dane Gadowski, dude. And there's
Clearly.
they're so funny though too. Like the interview with them, that's the funniest YouTube video that's come out of surfing.
That's pretty much like if we can get on those kind of guys, like especially the Gadowskis brothers, if we can get on their radar, that's really cool for us because they are like the most stoked people.
Yeah. So
know?
Tanner, thanks so much,
thank
dude.
you guys, and
Good on you. That was
Keep up the
epic.
stoke.
You don't know how stoked we all were from that.
all right, we're out.
You. Toob. Backhand tube.
Four points.
Not gonna make it.